We all know Football Manager isn't a perfect replica of real-life football.
Havertz, Kai Havertz! We want it more!
And sometimes keeping your saves realistic can be a real challenge. So in today's video, I've got 5 practical tips for you to help your next save feel both more realistic and immersive, and these are tips that I use myself over the 3 years that I've played Football Manager. And trust me, these tips will definitely help your next save feel a lot more rewarding. So without further ado, let's just get straight into the first tip. I'm gonna start with one that might be a little bit tougher for newer players, coming from maybe a FIFA, NBA 2K, or Madden franchise building type game. Fill needs for your squad or your staff from within first. It's tempting to dive into Football Manager's massive database and look for the next big wonder kid or star coach on another team or in another country. But in real life, many clubs often look inwards first. Next time you need a quick striker for your counter-attacking system or a big-bodied center back to knock home near post corners, check your youth and B teams. They are there for a reason. Promoting a young player and guiding them over many seasons, tracking their development, sending them out on loans, seeing when they're ready for first team football can be so much more satisfying than any external signing that you may find. And I think it's very underrated for newer players just because of that massive database. And there's so much story to be told with them as well. These are the type of players that become local club legends, born and raised in the city that you are playing in. Valuable assets to sell on that you didn't have to use a transfer fee to bring in the first place. Or steady contributors who know your system inside and out, and maybe, just maybe, if they stay their entire career with you, can become a coach in the future too, which I've done plenty of times and is so satisfying. One of my favorite things to do is turn former players into great coaches. Promote them step by step, from youth teams to the senior team, and watch your own coaching tree spread across the world as they seek new and exciting opportunities outside of your team, and stories are created where you might get to play against them, they might betray you and go to a rival, or they may go on to just be a great coach in their own right. I think any one of those options is super cool and fun to track. And overall for this tip, and I think what a lot of these tips are going to boil down to, is it's a little bit slower, it's a little bit more detail oriented, and I want you to take your time with your saves a bit more, but the story and realism that you can get out of taking your time with these certain aspects are so worth it. All right, for the second one, I want you to slow down your recruiting and scouting process. This one really changed how I play, and it was kind of an ethos that I had when I first started playing the game, but getting into it as a content creator and a streamer kind of made me stray away from that because I wanted the quick satisfaction so much. But I'm glad to be coming back to the ways of being more patient in this scouting and recruiting strategy. Just because a player looks great and he's new to you doesn't mean that you need him. And even if you do need him, you don't need him right in that exact moment that you find him. Maybe there are outliers, generational talents, guys that will change everything for your club. I understand that. But I think in the grand scheme of things, that's not how it is. Be patient. Scout players over multiple seasons. Watch their games, whether that be their full game highlights, just the highlights of what they do, and see if they actually fit your style of play. Try declaring them as long-term targets, or test them on a loan with an option to buy, which is super common in real life. And one that I really like, because I've seen this happen with MLS players maybe making the jump to Europe, oftentimes younger academy type players. Get loan players in and then allow them to play on your youth team as kind of a test and really see their developmental potential. Do they grow in your academy? Are they going to be stagnant? Is it worth it to invest that time into them in the future? And here's a small challenge that you can add to it that I was inspired by from Musterman FM. Avoid using the player search. Rely on your scouts. Use GM suggestions. And focus on creating a scouting assignment strategy that is true to your style of play, to the ethos that you're bringing to your club, and be really intentional about it. I think for this one, it just feels a lot more authentic. It makes every signing feel earned. It allows you to get to know each player that you kind of add to your team as opposed to just throwing them all at the wall and seeing what sticks. And it feels like you're doing more than just grabbing all the 5-star potential wonder kids off the short list. All right. For my third tip, this is one I made a whole YouTube video about already, so I will link that if you want to see that in more detail, but I think this is key for immersion. The short version of that video is that AI clubs do not sign staff at the rate at which the game pushes the user to, and it really breaks the immersion and realism for me with my staff as a mid-table Portuguese team being bigger than some of the best clubs in the world. In real life, a lower league side might have 3, maybe 4 coaches depending on the level of which they're playing at. But in FM, for those same type of teams, you can hire double the staff, and the game actually pushes you to do so. I think this creates a huge advantage for the player, and whether that is super tangible in game, I think it breaks a lot of the immersion for me. Instead, match what your division's club AI is doing and kind of try to stay within those averages. I know this is more of a sports interactive problem and they should fix that on their end, but at the end of the day, a lot of these tips are house rules anyways. And with those more limited numbers, be more intentional about who you hire. Look for staff with the right personality or play style that you're trying to replicate at your club. Look for connections between staffers, another thing that Musterman FM inspired me to do. Look for old colleagues or guys that might speak the same language or have shared club history. That's how jobs happen in real life football, and I think hiring staff in this way will make each one more memorable, just kind of like how we talked about the players being scouted more thoroughly and over longer periods of time. You really get a more individual story with every single person in your save. I think it's funny to save my favorite one for tip 4, but my favorite thing to do is to really take my time in preseason. I always loved playing the preseason in games like Madden, where you had to cut your roster from like 80 players to 53, when those battles would come down to the wire for playing positions, when you try new plays, when you try the new players in your system. I think that was so much fun, and I've really applied that to Football Manager. Overall, I think preseason is super underrated. A lot of players rush it. They sign a few players as the summer window is ending. They line up money-making friendlies to get more money in the coffers, and they jam in as many as they can to get the squad match fit and sharp. And there's nothing wrong with any of those on a surface level, but I think what the preseason is so perfect for is to really experiment with both your squad and your tactic, and to test, really test what your team is going to do in the regular season. This aspect of it is super inspired by Deep Lying Playmaker's style of building a tactic from scratch. Start simple, build your shape and your roles first without applying any instructions. Schedule friendlies that test what you want to see, whether that be a more attacking and open style of play against teams that may be worse than you, or a more defensive and counter-attacking style against teams who might be better than you. And watch those games in detail. I'm an extended highlights guy through and through, but preseason might be the play for comprehensive highlights and even re-watch games at certain times to see how the shape fits. These are things that you may miss if you rush through the preseason, and you don't want to have those questions needing to be answered when the games actually matter. And I think what makes the preseason the most fun to me, in regards to like that Madden reference, is really giving the youth players a chance to shine. See which ones have earned playing time for the main team, whether that be through really good youth appearances or B team appearances, a good loan or two in the previous seasons. Allow them to push some of your starters for their spots and see if your starters still deserve their starting spot. And it's also a perfect time to make sure those youth teams and B teams of which you're pulling players from are organized well. Make sure the right players are getting playing time and getting the right amount of minutes. And make sure if you're really playing for an exact system, see if those teams are playing roles or instructions that actually will help those players develop for the system that you have on the first team. A deep and thoughtful preseason sets the stage for a smoother regular season and makes every match feel more connected to your long-term vision. All right, and finally, set goals that aren't just about trophies. This is an ethos that I follow so much in my Canada Build a Nation that I'm currently playing both on YouTube and live on Twitch. Not every club is built to win the Champions League. Some are stepping stone clubs, some are feeder teams, or the local club that's just trying to stay afloat and be financially stable as a source of entertainment for their area. Try giving yourself goals like these. How many academy players can you get to debut for a national team? How many players can you sell to Europe's top 10 clubs? Can you turn your club into a self-sustaining business that never spends more than it earns? Or in the case of a journeyman, growing your own career realistically, moving up the coaching ranks until you finally get to your dream job. And obviously a lot of these things coincide with winning. It's going to make it easier, but it's not all about winning. These extra layers make your save feel bigger. It makes your club and your character feel more like a true character in the universe and not the superhero main character that a lot of video games tend to make you feel like. And you know, there's a place and a time for that, but I think with Football Manager, there's so many different ways you can experience the game, and that's why I love it so much as a sandbox. These are just suggestions and house rules, but I think these 5 tips are super fun ways of playing the game more realistically. So there you go. Those are 5 of my favorite ways to make your FM save feel more realistic and immersive. But I want to know what you guys think. I want to know what tips you have for me to make it feel more realistic. I want to know if you don't care about realism at all. I want to know if these tips just mean nothing to you. Let me know in the comments. It's always interesting to have the conversations. I try to reply to them all thoughtfully because it's nice to just open up this conversation. I used to be a big forum guy with sports games back in the day. So this is a nice way to kind of create that dialogue again for me. So please let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like, the subscribe. Make sure to follow me on Twitch and YouTube, whichever one you prefer, or both. I would appreciate that if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't, don't worry about that. I totally understand. And until next time, guys, I will see you in the next one. This has been Dill 40K, and peace.